Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Any agenda adjustments need to be made?
I'd like to add a new item at number 9, which is the approval of the town plan revisions. You'd have to vote to add.
And do I hear a motion?
Motion to add the,
Or you're gonna take action.
This first, they're gonna vote to add it to the agenda, and then they're gonna take action. So number 9 is on the action agenda on this one.
So it's eight
It's on
A
the action.
or eight A.
proposal to, add the town plan amendment to the agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion made, seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of adding the town plan to the agenda, item 8A, say aye.
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 Ayes have it. Public comments. Have anybody?
Just make sure that we don't have anybody waiting to get in. Hang on a second. Nope. Thank you. Just wanted to double check.
Okay. Next, approve the minutes of the January 17th meeting.
Motion to approve the, last meetings minutes.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
A
I'll
second.
second.
Second has been made by. Any discussion on it? All in favor of approving the meeting on January 17th, say aye.
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 Ayes have it. Motion approved. Next is check register approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the check registers.
I'll second it.
The motion's been made and been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the, oh, you have a question?
Oh, no, I just said no on the,
Oh,
on the
yeah.
late,
All in favor of
Edge.
approve the check register, say aye.
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 Ayes have it. DRB appointments.
So the recommendation that came to us for this is to appoint Donnie Blake as the full member and to appoint Melissa LeBlanc, who was the full member and didn't want to be a full member anymore, as the alternate. My understanding, there weren't any other applicants, so
I'll make a motion to appoint Don Blake as the, new member of the DRB and Melissa LeBlanc as the, first alternate.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motions to appoint Donnie Blake as full-time member of the DRB and move to appoint Melissa LeBlanc as an alternate member of the DRB, say aye.
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 Ayes have it. Annual meeting date authorization.
So with the big eclipse coming, there's a, like V-Trans is saying you're not gonna be able to, there's gonna be traffic jams everywhere and, there's all these parties planned. It's April, it's gonna be cloudy, it's gonna get dark, it's gonna get clear, but you know, but everyone is recommending, like, if you have meetings, even less important meetings than an annual meeting, that you just shouldn't be doing it. Fortunately, it turns out that the laws from COVID that says you can move the meeting are still on the books. So the recommendation is to move it from the 8th to the 17th.
Brad, when do you come back?
Around the 30th of May.
Oh, that's a little.
Can you slide it that far?
We can do whatever you want. And remember, the biggest impact from my perspective, because again, all appointments then just move to the new date, any terms, so that's not a big deal. The biggest impact that I think we had during COVID time is it gets hard to complete any way projects. Because we don't start that process until after annual meeting, because we need to know if we have a budget.
The special project.
I'm sorry, not even a special project, you're right. It just, and they have to be 100% complete by like the middle of December in order to get them paid out. So it really narrows the time. That's the biggest impact from my perspective. Other than that, I don't think there is any, but that I know of.
The town is closing at noon for the day, and we were just told that we're all expected to grab our kids and go home and stay off the roads unless we're emergency,
This is a eclipse.
yeah. They're expecting,
What time is the eclipse supposed to happen?
like 3 in the afternoon.
Okay,
But they're expecting, like 250,000 people to flood the state, and we're right in the path of it.
yeah.
I guess,
I think it's.
we
pretty-
learned today there was, yeah, that, there were 17,000 people in a community out west when this happened like 5 years ago. And there were like 250,000 people showed up, they weren't prepared, it shut down hospitals, restaurants, Airbnbs.
So we're recommending we move off that date if for no other reason, to listen to the emergency planners who say, please don't do anything stupid, like having meetings that you don't have to have. So,
Might get a better turnout at the meeting.
you probably have a lot of non-residents wanting to speak on.
You put it on the screen or something. A viewing party. Any thoughts from you guys? Brad? Carl?
Not gonna affect me, boys. I don't,
That's true.
I
Yeah,
probably
I'm
won't, probably won't see it down here.
To move it, we do need a motion from you, by that statute, you have to make a motion to move it to the date certain.
Okay,
Okay, I'll make a motion to move the meeting to the next week, which is what, the 17th?
Correct. 17th,
17th.
it'll be Wednesday. I just picked, that's your normal meeting date, so therefore we'll just cancel your regular meeting and have the annual meeting. That's why I did it that way. Could be any day you want. I just picked that one.
Mhm.
all right, the motion's been made. Your second?
Second?
Second's been made. Any further discussion? All in favor of changing the annual village meeting date to April 17th, say aye.
Aye.
Nice to have it.
Thank you all.
Do you have it in there where we're gonna have it? Is it in the
EFW.
BFW? Okay.
Yeah, Sarah saved both the 8th and the 17th, so we have the VFW either way, so she can now release the 8th.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Hard.
That's it. Sorry.
Maybe,
Maybe,
yeah.
they're smart, to make some money. More than they were gonna make from us.
All right, next is the asset sale authorization.
Yep, per our procurement policy, if we're gonna dispense with any current assets of any type, we need authorization from you all. And as you know, in our budget, we had in our budget to replace 2 pickup trucks this year, truck 4 and 5. And so we've gotten 3 bids, and with trade-in values, and the low price, which is around 86 and change, $87,000 for the 2 trucks. Then includes 14,500 for a trade-in for the 2 trucks combined. They both have a lot of rust, like you can see through the fenders. So we did have bids higher than that on the trade-in, but the overall bids were higher. So the company that bid, offered 14,500, also offered us a municipal discount, which nobody else did. And as a result, their bid was pretty significantly lower than anybody else's. So we're recommending that, you authorize us to, trade those vehicles in for 14,500.
All right, I'll make a motion to authorize management to sell trucks 4 and 5 as part of the acquisition of their replacement trucks.
Motion's
The
been
sale
made.
trade value must not be less than 14,500 combined.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second's been made. Any discussion?
Nope.
What year are these trucks?
You remember?
When you say truck 4 and 5, what kind of truck are they?
Pickups.
They're the, for the meter readers? For-
One meter reader, one's the.
Half-ton pickup truck for the line crew, I think in 2012 and 2015.
No, they're probably, one is maybe both 2017. I'm pretty sure truck 4 is 2017 and They probably all are. We bought 5 vehicles that year.
Sorry about that.
The issue we've been having with Russ is that you probably know when we were all kids, they had the undercoat that stuck forever under it and protected your vehicle. So now you can't do that anymore. You have to do annual undercoating, and so it's a practice we haven't had in the past, so we're gonna start doing the annual undercoat. It's more environmentally sensitive, Bob. I see your brow furrowed. Like,
No, I mean,
why?
I didn't know they stopped undercoat the cars. I know
They don't put permanent undercoat on them anymore.
some
It's-
of the
it's costly.
undercoat on my cars are galvanized, so they don't last any.
Yeah, so that's what we think is happening with why they're rotting out so much.
Well, is it too, keeping them in the bays?
We do keep them all on the day.
Yeah, so then I just know that, I don't know what you could do. And I'm not suggesting do anything, but I just know, keeping a car in a garage like ours, it just
Well,
increases
it's a lot.
the rust because of the humidity and the,
If there's a lot of salt on the car and it's in the garage, it's gonna rust even faster because the temperatures.
Yeah.
Leaving it outside.
So in addition to the undercoat, we're talking about doing undercoat and starting this place in town that has the underbody spray. So, once a month, go spray the underbody and put the undercoat on and, do everything we possibly can to extend the lives of these things, because they're definitely not lasting. The point is they're not lasting currently with what we've been doing. So it's time to do something different.
I just saw something that, a car wash bowl back in the 40s. Which when you drive your car in, it's just like a bowl, you drive your car in and to wash the undercoat underneath your car, and then you just drive around, that's where like the bowl came from, the wash. I was like, and I was just thinking, let's build a bowl, no, just kidding, but
Yep.
that's, not that I was, that's all.
Cool.
Okay, so, motion to made and seconded, all in favor of, authorizing manager to sell trucks 4 and 5 as part of the acquisition, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Hey,
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, town plan.
Yeah, so, on Monday night, the select board, had a meeting to start the process of getting the town plan changed about the transportation provisions specifically, underway. It's definitely a priority for them. They moved this right along and made sure the planning council chair knew that they wanted him to prioritize this over other things on their plate and to get it done. And they invited us, as you know, to come and attend, so we would know what they're up to. They passed it, I both emailed you the language that they adopted, and what the current town plan says. And for you that here, I put the proposal in front of, at your place as well. So the idea of adding this tonight, this is not the final decision you make. This is to get the planning council to do the process so that then all the public hearings can happen, because both the town and we have to have a public hearing. And only after the public hearing do you make the final decision. So this is really a motion to approve this language, but all the effect of it is to get the planning council to put to put it together for public hearing, and then you make the final decision. So if it was your final bite at the apple, I would not feel okay adding it to an agenda without it being on a previously warned notice of the meeting. But since it's really a perfunctory process item, it seemed to me with the urgency that the select board had put on this, that it made sense to just add it to your agenda and try to get this moving. And Bob and Carl were at the meeting, if they want to add anything, but
No, I'll make a motion to, accept the changes approved by the select board to the, town plan.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the amendments to the town plan? Say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
thank you all. I'll make the select board happy with this thing moving.
Okay, other business. Annual meeting planning.
We got Sarah here and at your place, and I will now, Carl and Brad, I'm gonna send you an email, but she has both the draft warrant for you, we're not voting on any of them tonight, and a draft budget. So let me, split the screen. I can't split the screen.
Who's trying to do it? Oh,
Send her files to Brad and Carl. Maybe I can.
you don't need to share the screen, or
Yeah, I can do
you
this.
can just forward an email too.
That's what I'm gonna do. I just gotta find it for her. Gotta make sure you get the .gov. Hey, you guys haven't seen the new website. Sarah and Judy are the architects of the new town website.
Is it easier to use,
I think it's.
Did you create it,
the website?
or did you have,
No, we hired a company to do it, but I didn't like anything they did, so basically I redid it.
didn't have Dylan do it?
Nah, no one's in Costa Rica when I was doing this.
So Brad and Carl, if you're at a place where you can see your email, you should be soon receiving a forwarded email from Sarah with two files. One is a spreadsheet that is the budget, draft budget, and one is a draft warrant.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Typically, I come later in the year to do this with you guys, but, I may have conflicts with your next meeting, and then it's kind of getting, late. So I thought it would be better to bring it sooner rather than later. There's not much, that's different on the morning. The date will now need to be changed. I changed, Article 3, the salary, I upped it to what, the voters voted, amended like for your salaries. I don't have a budget amount in for the budget. Once you guys finalize the budget, I would plug numbers.
I see this, $2,400 a year from Copley Country Club. It's a lot more than that, isn't it?
No, so I was gonna actually ask, so that's the $2,400 lease payment that is paid to the village, or it's paid to
Yeah.
us, and it's like, if you wanna decide tonight to put it in there, you can, but typically it's an Amy Wade or a special projects.
Okay,
So if,
I thought that was the total that the golf course gives back to the village.
it
From
is,
the rent on the cell phone tower.
yeah, that's what they give back. But it, again, the way the lease agreement is set up is it's either or.
Yeah, that's fine.
So if you want it to be. Cause if it's the Amy Wade, well, I guess regardless if it's Amy Wade, it still shows up there, right, kind of?
No,
The village
I don't
revenue?
know.
No, I didn't, okay.
Are you on the budget?
No, I was not on the
Oh, you're
budget,
on
I was
what?
on the warning, but if you'd rather go to the
No,
budget.
I'm
we
just
can
trying,
go.
I'm also realizing if we just share this and then.
So I was starting with the warning.
Yep, that's what I have now. Thank you.
So Article 3 was this, the salary. Article 4 is the budget, but I don't have an amount in there. Article 5 is the village special projects. Article 6 is the standard, date for when taxes are due. And then 7, Scott had emailed me that you wanted to, that should be green, river.
Give her.
Give her a river, we'd like to give her away.
Give her us for a while.
More of a taker.
So, well, I think there's nothing that voters would be voting on, correct? It's just, discussion.
Correct.
So that's why they were under non-binding on business. I don't know if you have any other articles you wanna add, I don't know if you wanna,
Only thing I was kind of mentioning, which I mentioned to the chair before the meeting, is I believe this year that Travis's term is up. I think that's who's up this time. Tom got reelected last year, and he stayed chair because Travis's schedule didn't let him be here regularly enough to be chair. So I think
Well, Travis wasn't up to be chair anyway, was he?
he would have been, because he was in the last year, he was fulfilling the last 2 years of that.
Yeah.
So I think he's throwing this back up, just so you guys are all aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure you're all aware of that. Nothing for you necessarily to do, it's just awareness, that's all. In case you were wondering if it was you.
I maybe didn't hear the whole thing. Do we know if Travis is gonna run again, or?
I haven't heard otherwise.
Okay.
Either way.
Yep. We have somebody joining, by the way.
So you don't have to vote on this tonight, this is just,
Yeah, we're just.
so that you see it if you have time, between now and when you actually have to vote on it, if there's anything you wanna
That's right.
change or amend.
Brad, did yours come through an email?
No, I have nothing.
I haven't got it
Alright.
yet either, Scott, just for,
All right, let me just see what the heck's going on. Say
that's
send
stuck in your
online.
outbox or something, is it?
I just clicked again to refresh and I didn't get anything.
Says it went.
What's that?
It says it went, but let me try again.
Okay, maybe it'll just take a little time. That's okay.
No, that's fine.
And again, Sarah, even if the revenue itself is decided to go to the special projects, that's not part of the budget,
Correct.
so that can still be decided at the time. I mean, I think it's better if they do know where they want to put it, but.
Yeah. Do you want me to move on to the budget? Are you guys all set with the warning, or are we waiting for?
We're set.
I'm all set.
Let me go to the budget.
There they are.
Okay, good.
Thank
I'm
you.
trying to think of what, there's not a lot of changes in the budget, and what I'm proposing. I have the income proposed for moving the Copley Country Club, but, that's still, maybe it's going to Amy Wade, I'm not sure about that. I upped the salaries, for the village trustees. I applied 6%, I think is what Penny had said for, you gave me that figure a
5.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Was it 5? Should it be 5? Okay. I
No
feel
more-
like,
no more than 5, yeah.
okay, so those should be reduced. And I think that's about it, then it's just, do you have a better figure for the audit? I just threw.
I do, I was looking at that, I'll get that to you.
And then it was just guessing advertising, just based on what it was from last year, and the village. Report, maybe it could go down a little bit, but I think that their prices have go up, so.
Yeah.
Again, you'll vote on this at an upcoming meeting. It just, tonight was to get it in front of you the first time. Obviously, Sarah will make some changes to it, so.
Any questions? It's good.
Fine.
Good, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Scott, was there supposed to be an attachment on that email?
I just got the attachment. It just came in just now.
Oh, okay, because I got an email, but no attachment.
I didn't until just barely, Carl, so look again.
Okay,
Or maybe yours is filtered out because you got high-tech security on your email.
yeah, it's my work email, so there's definitely a lot of security there, but.
All right. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on, cybersecurity presentation.
So in the email I sent, it's obviously pretty high level, because what we're not supposed to do is publicly talk about the results, because then you basically give people a roadmap of how to attack you. So as you know, we have our vulnerability assessment, and as we've told you all along, we're going to do very well on it. And it's everything from, do we have the right management reviews in place? Do we have the right policies in place? Do we have the right tracking mechanisms and softwares, and are our servers up to date, and, is the firmware up to date? It basically looks at everything in our system. And we did, on some things we did better than I would have expected, and in most cases we did as poorly as we expected. you know, the good news, bad news is that, you know, that really for us, mostly our vulnerability today is our office network. And that's because, you know, the other ways you try to attack us, or at least people like us around the country, is to try to go in through wherever we have technology on, you know, our electric system for an automatic recloser tied to a computer network, or like your SCADA system for your water system. That's where people try to hit you, right? If you're trying to take over the infrastructure. We don't have a lot of that. We have a little bit of it, but it means, you know, our old fashioned manual way of doing a lot of the work we do is actually makes us much less vulnerable. Won't always be that way, with trying to deal with this grid of the future where we have to balance loads on a real-time basis. Everything's gonna be computerized, so all the more reason to get good at this now than wait till after we put a whole bunch of technology on our water, wastewater, and sewer, and water, wastewater, and electric systems. So that means right now, most of our vulnerability is, again, our office network. And most of that was an old server. The vast majority of the issues we had was with like a 2011, Penny will give me the right date, but it was something like a 2011 server. They had a bunch of software on it that was no longer supported for security updates. And the server itself couldn't be supported. So I don't know, have we gotten rid of it, or is it already, or is it in process? Do you know?
I think it's still there, the new one is in place,
Okay.
and I believe we're using the new one. I think the old one is just there to, he can copy files over.
We gotta finish
Data
that
files.
transfer, but the point is, we're getting rid of most of the problem already. Just by taking that action. There's other actions, there's everybody's individual computers on their desks have, I don't think there were any that had no issues found in the assessment, so we gotta get most of that, and that's not people doing nefarious things, it's a patch or a firmware, I mean, Carl knows this stuff, everything, but it's all those sort of things that gotta, every single computer's gotta get gone through, to make these sort of upgrades. But then the work turns to making sure we have the right oversight, the right policies, all those sort of pieces in place so that eyes are on this on a regular basis, right? And we don't find out in 10 years that we've got old stuff that's not taken care of appropriately, again, after the stakes get higher, on us. So this is the type of thing, like many things we do here, where we have to build a bit of a culture and an ethic that this is a day by day, week by week, month by month. You gotta stay at it. Your eyes gotta remain on it. Your actions have to be vigilant. You gotta keep training and retraining people on what to look for. And almost every day, Penny and I end up talking about an email that came in and what should we do with it, right? Because most of them are actually fine, but it's like, well, this doesn't look quite right. So, you know, let's get that to VEPSA, send it through all their screening tools, make sure it's okay, you know, and half the time it's a bill for us. And somebody just has some wacko system sending us stuff from weird addresses, right? And with no other identifier. So it really is about that sort of action. And we also have a pretty good roadmap on the kind of investments we're gonna need to make in the short term, which is not a lot of money. The server was the biggest short-term expense, that we'll have to make for sure. But it really gets our heads in the game as we talk more about, you know, expanding, adding items, remote operation on some of Kevin's stuff, so we can see it on the SCADA and starting to build some of that more into David's electric system. We gotta be pre-planning how we're gonna maintain all this, but I think I wrote in the memo on this. You know, you'd think that we, a little sleepy Morrisville Water and Light, should not be who the Russians or the Chinese or someone else are trying to get at. But they actually, apparently, from what I've learned so far from Homeland Security, because I've been going to those meetings, they tend to think that the big utilities have their crap together, whether they do or they don't. And they know the way particularly the electric grid works. If you can get in through us, you can then chase it through the system, and you can find the opening on our little system and backtrack your way into turning something big off. That's at least the thought process. So So it's not as unlikely as I would have imagined that we'd be the target, instead of, Eversource down in Massachusetts. We're probably as likely as them, as it turns out. So, just something we really gotta do. If you want more detail, I'm totally happy sharing it, and, in a future meeting, we could have an executive session. I'd show the slide decks with you. Could show the full reports with any of you that would like to see them. Just remember they're confidential, for the reasons I said at the top. So I'll stop blathering, see if you have questions, see, whatever you wanna do with this.
I'd like to see as much detail as I could, Scott.
Yeah.
The server, the old server, I guess it'd be good to have a drop dead date to shoot for, to make sure that thing is disconnected, taken off the network. Otherwise, the new server isn't helping you from a vulnerability perspective at all, if it's still sitting on the network.
Agreed.
So it'd be nice to have a date to shoot for, to say, yeah, we're gonna get it all done by this date and follow up on it.
Yep, we will definitely, get you a date on that. We'll check with Vepsa.
And then as far as the office network, the rest of the office network, is that pretty much VEPS's responsibility, to help keep all the computers patched and up to date and so forth?
Yes, that's how, we don't have a private vendor, and we don't have a staff person, so when we have an issue that arises, or any of the normal maintenance that should happen, it's up to Vepsa. They, I would say they scored about as badly on their own as we did, so, while they have some people that know what they're doing, they weren't having the resources to do it, so they've just promoted, and this is not an issue with the people, the guy who's retiring, they've just brought a new person in to kind of take over that space at Vepsa, and they're actually gonna hire more of a, younger analyst level, so they're actually, and they still have Kim, so they're actually adding one full-time equivalent to their team, Carl. Really in response to the fact that all we need is just have these assessments, and both they and we all didn't do very well, so they're realizing they've got to up their game on our behalf. Now, that's gonna show up in a bigger Vepsa bill every year, right? We pay our share of anybody they hire, but to protect our systems, it's money well spent, in my view.
And the smart meters, I mean, is that something that comes with?
I believe they're all encrypted, but we're gonna have to know before we start bringing that data back and forth. And Vepsa's working on this, and it's part of the vendor's scope, making sure we understand how that data flow is gonna happen, how it's gonna be protected, and then once we have all that data, how we protect that data. But if somebody breaks into our system, and all of a sudden they get all that customer data from us, everything we got, so that's a pretty core responsibility of ours, is to protect our customers' data, because in Vermont, the customer owns the data, not the utility. So. Beginning of a journey is the way I would frame this up, and Carl, I'll definitely send you all the files. And if anyone else is interested, let me know, we're pretty big into this. As you might imagine. I think one of the, we did two vulnerabilities, Carl, might get it well, but I think one is a DOE vulnerability tool, and one is a Homeland Security vulnerability tool. Yeah.
Do you feel that there's gaps as far as, this being specific to electric side of things? Was there, if you have a separate space for water supply and controllers and things like that, is there more to do to assess that area?
I think there will be more to do, particularly as it relates to some of the control systems that Kevin has begun to put in over the past few years, and the ones that he wants to continue to put in. We gotta really, we may need some additional help to look at the water sewer side to make sure that, we're the same sort of resource we have available on the electric side, we get access to on the water side, because that's not really the focus of the VEPSA piece, but they got access to those through the American Public Power Association. That's who they hired to do this.
Yeah.
So of course, the focus was electric. So yes, we do need to do that. That's a gap, Carl.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Now for me,
Okay, moving on to the sport. Sport report.
Service quality reliability. Or plan
This
reporting.
is something we're required to share with you once a quarter, I think. Is it once a quarter or once a year?
At least once a year, I know.
At least once a year.
This is the annual report
Yeah.
or the
But
annual
we have to
filing.
send to the state, when we get judged on.
Yeah.
So we're more say about highlights.
No, I mean, we, as typical, have met all of our baseline. The baseline rating, I guess it is, came in under all of them. There are, and I've only had it once in my time here where we missed a couple, we had to do like a service guarantee, but. And I mean, I'll also just state that they've never, the DPS has never asked me questions until last year when we were going through our rate increase big case. And then they went through them all and asked me a couple questions, mostly about like why the number of customers was this and the number of bills was that. And it's mostly how we put the data on here and the fact that some customers have multiple meters in the system because they're solar, and it's just, it brought out some issues with how we're getting the data from our system, but. And this program was put in place in, I think it was right around 2005, 2006, because it was right before I started, or right off the time I started. That they decided they needed to put this type of plan in place.
who's the they, Penny? State?
The commission, DPS. I don't know if there was some
Yeah.
struggles, it might have been maybe about the time, Vermont Electric Co-op was having some issues, I'm not 100% sure, but, you know, between the commission and the DPS, we have to file it with both of them.
I see.
And it was the DPS asking me questions, Carl, last year for, when we were going through the rate case.
Are you happy with this?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
You know, and I mean, we really. You know, the number of bills found inaccurate, that's like typically the only area where we actually have a number, and you know, sometimes it's a misread meter and we don't catch it till after the fact, and. But, I mean, even then, the percentage is less than what it's, I mean, for the year, we had. Just 18 bills out of the
Yeah, you would think there'd be kind of some leeway there. They had to maybe
52,
get
that
100%.
52,000 that we sent, so. Yeah,
I think
maybe that we haven't come across, but it's either we've come across them and the customer's gotten the bill, or the customer's come across it and asked us. Go ahead, Brad, sorry.
I was just gonna say, Penny, I think that is an amazing percentage. I truly do. I can't believe you can send out that many bills and have that few errors. So, well done.
Thank you.
Now, next year, this will reflect the new system. Is that gonna be on here and?
Yes, again, the new system of just that's
The
the new
billing, all
payment
that stuff.
platform, it's not a new billing system per se. It's, I mean, as a, yeah, for 24, we're not getting a new billing system. So I don't suspect that those numbers would be a lot different.
Okay,
I think there's one area, but it's mostly rates of complaints to the DPS. Yeah, number 5, I mean, we might have some there, if people get mad that,
I mean, I think that's gotta be expected when they have a chain. And that's, that's good.
yeah, I mean, we've had some, and we'll get into that, but yeah. But we have not had any complaints to the DPS in quite a while.
It's awesome. Any other questions?
Not for me.
No,
Nope.
Good. Thank you, Penny. Thank you. Management update.
Kevin, you wanna go?
Sure.
Water leaks. We had one on Congress Street last week near Cherry Ave that was on the customer service line on our side of the curb stop. Got that fixed, and then one popped up on Route 15A, just past the elementary, or the elementary school, down the bottom of the hill, in front of Dana Douglas's. The main is on one side of the road, the water's surfacing on Dana's side, so we'll see what that, we're gonna schedule to fix that, so we'll see what that turns into, Joe.
Oh, Wednesday night's not a good night to call.
Kevin, we've been waiting a long time on ERG. Is that, we waiting for the same thing all this time, or I remember it's been on there for a while, but.
Yep, coming up on a year probably. I just thought Ken was up here, what, last month?
You know, last month.
In the last month, and he's still waiting for him. But we hope to see a smiling face next month to start the rebuild of the vertical.
Yeah, that's what he told us, is by next month, that basically everything is getting, the last pieces of the retuning of the shaft and stuff was being completed. And that then they would ship all the material back up here and start putting it back together.
Are we gonna get any spare bearings?
Should order one now.
We should, that's what we need to do.
I mean, if they have to make them, it's a lot easier to make them now after they just made it.
Yeah, agreed. Good point. I would say on the water leaks, Kevin has been reporting that, we've been pumping a little more water into the reservoirs than normal. So we've wondered for a while if we had some water leaks, and you just have to wait for them to show themselves. You know, you can get contractors who then at 2 o'clock in the morning, probably use the listening devices to try to find them. And even then, most of the time you miss them. Mostly just, they show up, the leak eventually shows itself, and so we're hoping that the two that have shown themselves are about it, and that then we see the pumping rates go back down. Otherwise, we gotta do some searching.
And, you know, there has been a lot of growth, so.
Yeah.
Some of that increase is expected. We did find a leak today on the customer side of the meter, so.
Yeah.
That gets fixed really quick.
One other question about this breaker. Whoever rebuilds these things, they don't have any spares?
These are some of the, with the original switchgear from the 40s probably. 3C came up and went through them all. You were there when we took the breaker out of the cabinet, right? So the one had mechanically failed on the vertical before they started tear down, so our two spares have been fine, but we just tested them, and one of them needs a new coil, and one of them's got some physical hang up, so. Trying to 3C up here now, take a look at that.
I know, cause I used to be able to borrow one. If I needed a 2,500 kW breaker for a generator, you know, I could get one from the manufacturer and then they ship it out, we put it in and ship ours back, and then we swap them out again.
Yeah. If they've got one, great, we'll certainly get one on the road, but our two spares, we just double checked them and now they've got issues, or not now.
Who's it, do you recall who the manufacturer is? GE or Westinghouse?
Westinghouse, yeah. So a company called 3C has been up here to do, check our trip relays and safety relays, and they went through those breakers back then, and we've just kept them aside for a spare. And we just wanted to double check them and make sure we could replace the one we took out, and we've got issues, so hopefully it's nothing big, they can come in and get them on. When Ken's done with his work on vertical, that won't be a holdup.
All right.
At the Sugarwoods development
Yeah.
discussion.
McCain Engineering touched base with me and wanted to know about developing those lots that have already been subdivided out in that area, and
Where is it?
the end of DeMars Road. Todd Dusso and.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Dana Wilds started that. And I told him, about our concerns with sewer extensions, outside, it's right outside the village boundary, so. He said, well, it's good because we're not looking to do that. They want to bring force mains from each individual house into the last manhole, just as you turn by Sean Woodell's. And the water main, the transmission line from well 3 over to the side of the town runs right in the middle of that whole Sugarwoods development, so they'll be able to use the water there. We did, John and I went up, took static pressure on that last hydrant, or the hydrant that's out in that area, and it's 43 pounds, so if they can work with that. Then proceed.
Yeah, Budwee Springs are still logging up there.
Yeah,
They're gonna be-
oh, they've been making hay while the sun's shining. The road condition's been great up in the woods, so.
How good is that road? I can see the road coming off 15.
Mhm.
Could you drive up there in your SUV?
I want to, yeah.
It must be, I've seen the trailers
Have you
going up
done it?
there.
I haven't yet, no, but
Yeah.
Well, I'll wait till you do it.
You can up in a company pickup, four-wheel drive.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can go.
we'll take truck 4 up there before we.
Might fall apart, don't do that.
Okay,
Anything else?
all right, Bill Electric.
We had the luxury of a customer job up at Harrison's, that used to be Menage's pit in Garfield. It's a good job to keep us busy during January. We don't have a lot of customer work in January that you want to tackle, but that was a good job. We had 7 new poles and we relocated 6 more, and their plan is to take that pit down another 60 feet, so not only are they going deeper, they open up a whole new area. I guess they bought some off of Emerson. So they've got a whole bunch more work to do up there. As far as gravel goes, and they've got their new service, new electric service. Second customer, just a 2-pole line extension. The guys did that in a day. The pole survey, that's for work that the trustees approved as part of our 2024 budget. That's a bunch of transmission poles from the Garfield Road to the end of our system in the Hardwick direction. Could be a total of 27 poles, transmission and distribution circuit combined. A lot of moving parts there, and so Rusty and I, we went out to see exactly how much material was gonna be associated with each pole, what kind of access we were gonna need to each pole, that kind of a thing. Borns Energy, they had a overload service with a trouble call. We responded to that and turned out that it was, actually, they wanted to upgrade a service, turned out to be they ruined their service with all the load that they had on it. An emergency repair turned out to be, half a day working with them and their electrician to get their service back up. Still waiting for them to make their application for separating the shop from the office down there on Randolph Road.
They sold that, right? Borns, that bought like Deep River.
Kind of a shop.
Dead River?
Deep
Dead
River, Dead River, Deep River, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard if they're gonna keep the brand or not, but Orange is a thing of the past.
What was that?
Oh, that was definitely that we're doing that.
Probably the last big item, was the, change order for the bucket truck. The International was unobtainium, couldn't get the cab and chassis that was supposed to go with the boom and the cab or the till space. So we worked out, Tim Kiley, the owner of Telelec, the producer of the bucket truck, located a Freightliner cab and chassis, at a little additional cost to the surcharges on the original International, and it's actually equal to or better than, greater GVW on the axles and chassis, more horsepower in the engine, so it actually turned out to be a pretty good deal. We're gonna get the truck in summer 2024 instead of who knows when, 2025.
Well, that's a good deal.
All right, can we start over?
Yeah. Just like the president.
Keep in mind, we did this bid process for this truck in 2022.
Yeah,
Because when you authorized the purchase of this truck, so this was already taking a long time, and then when David heard Well, we can't even begin to give you a delivery date now, because we can't find the truck for me. That's when we said, well, what can you find? So Dave's done a lot of great work, legwork with the vendor to find a good solution that works for us. So. Both David and Rusty are comfortable that it's at least equal to or better, so.
So, refresh on, is gonna replace one of our trucks, or is this an addition
Yes.
to?
Yeah.
So the truck we have now is okay,
It has passed the safety requirements, but it costs a lot to keep it on the road and pass the safety requirements for how long, who would know, right?
And I can tell you how much extra money we put into truck 12, which is the one that we're trying to replace. That's we call it the small bucket. It's the 42-foot reach versus the 55 that we used in the rest of our system. And I think it's a 2001, maybe 2005. So it's been around for too long.
We don't want to give up on the original bid. I will tell you, so that bid was a little under 325, as I recall the number in 2022. Swanton just put in a change order for 2 new trucks, 2.5-year wait minimum, 500,000 a truck. So we didn't want to start again. That didn't make any sense at all.
so we're getting something that's different, but actually better off.
Yeah, different manufacturer. We pretty much had a tradition here of owning an international. This will be the first Freightliner that we've had here, but we did our research and the components of it are equal to or better than.
Cool, all right, okay.
How long do you think before we'll need another one?
Few years, not very long.
Yeah, not very long at all. The next newest one, the 55 footer is a 2013,
So it's 11 years old.
11 years old. So within the next 5 years, we should have another one here. So
Well, hopefully you'll be able to buy the same thing, so the parts will be interchangeable. You have 2 identical trucks.
you're thinking, take the boom and put it on
No.
the chassis?
No, you're saying buy a Freightliner.
Buy a
The
Freightliner.
next truck you buy should be the same as the one you're buying now,
Yes.
so when you stock your parts in-house, they'll fit in your truck.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Okay,
I have 2 small things, just, the payment platform is still working out really well. We're still taking a lot of phone calls from people that, trying to figure out how to register. We're helping people register. Once we get through, I think another month or so, people realizing, oh, I'm not on auto pay anymore. And getting through that, I think, it'll be good. There's a few things, it's technology, so we had some things that weren't working too well last week and the week before, one day each. Today our credit card machine stopped working and I unplugged it and plugged it back in and it worked, so I'm like, okay. But no, I think the girls are gonna be really happy with that. We had a customer on Maple Street that was complaining of high usage. After me doing some research and Eric got involved and he put a recorder on and the customer made some complaints. I realized that it was like an Airbnb. And not, like, it's not
Not a
residence, it's not owner occupied, it's just Airbnb. And I realized that they were being built residential. So I reached out to the customer and I said, hey, we're gonna be changing you, you've got a website and all that. I'll take the website down. And I'm like, the usage is way too much. And I reached out to the Department of Public Service. And when I emailed them, and I also said, hey, I know of at least 3 residential homes that are strictly Airbnb, again, not, what do you call it? Owner occupied. And they asked me some questions and they came back with, yeah, they're commercial. You need to build them as commercial and give them 30 days notice. So I just wanted to make you aware of that there's a good sized business on Maple Street that's gonna get
And we would not do that to owner occupied Airbnb, just to be clear, because
Yeah.
it's a whole different beast. But the ones that, where people from away are just buying up buildings just to, for no purpose other than to run a business, we're planning on treating them as a business.
What was the high usage complaint? So their customers are using it too much?
Just the electric meter was reading at a really high amount of usage. I mean, I think prior to the current owners being in that property, the usage might have been 2,000 to 3,000 kWh a month, and it's now upwards of 8, 9, 10,000 kWh a month, and the water usage is high, and the demand reading is high, and,
Yeah, heat pumps in a pool, and I mean,
Oh, pool, yeah.
so.
Is that true? They do have all that stuff? Oh, well, okay.
Is this the place right by the golf course road?
That's the place.
Is it in a zone though? I mean, when. I'm just trying to think,
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
if it's zone commercial, I mean, you can't change that, right? I mean, it has to be, when you have a business like that, you can't just change it from.
for how we actually
residential
do the
to-
electrical bill,
I'm
yeah.
talking about the town, I mean, it should be like in the town as a business. Therefore, that's how you can back that up, by it's listed as a town, it's not as a residential.
Yeah, I mean, that one, that's a good point, I don't know how that one is done, but
Yeah.
there's, again, I know of 3 different residents, and actually we mentioned on Report Forum last night, 3 that I already had in mind. They're owned by a business, and they're on Airbnb. Typically, a residential property, let's say, one of our businesses in town owns the property and they're renting it to me to live there. It's not Airbnb, it's I'm renting it. That is considered residential, even though it's owned by a business.
This long term.
It's a long-term rental,
Why is it considered residential?
cause it's being used residentially. If
You're
I'm living
yeah,
there
that's
as a
short-term
resident,
rental.
Yeah,
it's
but
not.
those ones that, I looked up their website, those things aren't being used, is that?
Okay, no, I'm talking about the difference between long-term and short-term.
Okay.
If I live in a property long-term
Mm-hmm,
and it's owned by the same owner, that would be residential.
yeah,
But if it's an Airbnb, it's under, I think you said 15 days or 30 days.
Less than 30 days.
Less than
Thank you,
30
yeah.
days, yeah.
and as far as the thing on Maple Street goes, the fellow that bought that said he was gonna live there, and he was gonna rent it every now and then.
Yeah.
That's how we got in with the ordinance in the village that said you had to live there.
Yeah.
Apparently he doesn't do that anymore.
I went back to the newspaper article, and yes, it said 3 months out of the year. I explained that to the DPS, and the guy has a Mass or New Hampshire address that address has, something like a Airbnb rental company or a.
I just got an email from Airbnb about a proposed law in Vermont that's gonna codify everything. If you don't live in a building at least 120 days a year, you can't. It's gonna be, you can't have an Airbnb.
Okay.
I'll send you a copy. Good thing that Airbnb.
So where'd you leave it at, or what's?
So basically, I just got notification either Monday or Tuesday. And they asked me, they said, yes, we agree that it's business. They said, what is your notice period? And I said, well, I was planning on noticing them like now before they get their bill, and then planning on implementing it next month. So-
More than 30 days.
Yeah, I mean.
Good.
And they said if your sheriff doesn't speak to it, then yeah, 30 days, so.
And you found two other properties that are the same thing? doing the same thing?
I mean, the other 3, I know that they're residential type homes, like a single family home, but they're Airbnb. I know they're owned by a business, again, that doesn't matter, but, if you look at last night's front porch.
But they're not.
Yeah.
Somebody
I think
just
that's-
also
Well, everybody
mentioned them.
can have them out in the town now, right? I don't know, unless they're
And
grandfathered.
Todd would tell you that there's no
not
way
long term.
to enforce
They're
it.
short-term.
Okay,
He doesn't know.
because you can do long
He
term.
doesn't know.
Yeah, Oh, you can.
Obviously, there's no way to enforce that.
Just because they're on Airbnb doesn't mean you can do long term.
I am not 100% sure, I'm pretty sure, based on talking with Todd about those places. I mean, it was on Front Porch Forum last night, it's the MSI Realty, MSI, they're named
Yeah, I went to the
Oasis.
website and looked them up
Yeah.
to see what the prices were.
Yeah.
And they're like $600 a day.
Yeah.
Wow, they're up to nice places.
More.
That's pretty good.
Well, there's one in Stowe for 4,000.
Well, actually, one of them's in Elmore.
A lot of microtransactions.
What's that?
I think at least two of them, one of them's in Elmore, but they might both be on Elmore there, and then there's one on.
See, it was the name of a family that was on it. They said there was one in Morristown, one in Elmore, one someplace else.
It's one's on Far Avenue, one's in Elmore, and
Okay,
then
there's
one's.
one on
like,
Far.
I
close.
like staying Brad's house for $600 a day.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll even open up my liquor cabinet.
That'll be 700.
Yeah.
The mini bar chart.
Exactly.
Okay, anything else?
No. I won't go into the court appearance, the non-court appearance.
Few things on mine worth updating you on is S-213, which I know I sent you the testimony on. So, you know, the bill in the Senate has a bunch of stuff about wetlands and other things that I didn't bother testifying on. But one of the responses from some legislators to the floods is to feel bad for everyone impacted, which we all feel bad for everyone impacted. But their thought is to change the test for liability for anyone that owns infrastructure, particularly dam owners, from general liability, which means we have to do something negligent for liable, to strict, which means we do everything perfectly and something happens, which can, all dams leak by definition, bad things can happen to dams. That you're entirely liable for all damages the whole way. So just want to make sure that, it's very serious. I will say it was good, BED testified yesterday, Burlington Electric. They brought their insurance broker with them who testified that Burlington Electric will be uninsurable if this passed. So I posited that was likely true. But we hadn't checked with our insurance company yet, so it was good that Burlington went in and confirmed what I warned them about. I also told them, just so you know, that I would, if this actually passed, I would feel compelled to come to you all and propose a bond issue to take all three dams out. It'd probably be $10 or $15 million, but compared to, I mean, if Green River ever let go, and we were responsible for all damages from Hyde Park to Colchester, gotta be hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And even if we had insurance, which we wouldn't be able to get, and municipal government, the backstop is the taxpayers, not the taxpayers of our whole system even, the taxpayers of Morrisville. Only
Of the village.
of the village of Morrisville. So, so I just,
Yeah.
if they actually were to pass this thing, I'd probably be coming to you recommending a special meeting to have a bond vote to raise, we'd have to get estimates, but something on the order of $10 or $15 million to tear all three of them down. Just so you know, that's what I think the stakes are, and I'm not one that likes to live in hyperbole. I don't like to overly dramatize these things, but I think it's actually that serious.
So, granted that worst case scenario, would we still have to do this dance with A&R and everybody else to do it?
Still we wouldn't have to worry about the licenses anymore, but we'd have to get a permit to tear them down. And we'd have to do studies and figure out all the conditions they were gonna make us put in place to tear it down. Which wouldn't be easy, because they don't want it down, because they want their Green River Reservoir State Park. So it would still be a pain in the butt, without doubt. It would certainly put a new level of pressure on the state, to deal with the issues, and then, of course, we'd have to find new renewable energy or buy more renewable energy credits. We probably produce there today at 3 or 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And the our average market rate for power supply now is something like 10.6 cents. So not only would you be paying for the capital cost, you'd be paying for the cost differential for what we can buy for replacement power. So it would be really terrible. I'm hoping cooler heads will prevail. I know Green Mountain Power also went in yesterday and made similar testimony. They didn't bring their insurance agent. That was brilliant of Burlington Electric. But they also, and Green Mountain Power has a lot of influence in the State House. So we'll see, but it's not a throwaway bill. They're serious about it. I expect between the three utilities, we made some headway. But just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
What committee or who introduced that bill?
This is in Senate Natural and was put in by a number of people. I think Senator White, I think she's a Burlington, certainly Chittenden County was the lead sponsor. Senator Westman actually signed on to it. He is not in favor, now that I've talked to him, of the strict liability provision. So he'll be withdrawing his support for that piece of it. But the wetlands pieces he was supportive of, which is really better floodplain management and wetland planning to help disperse floods. Is the idea of that piece of the bill. So we'll see. I'm hopeful that they'll exempt hydro dams from this liability, because we will have demonstrated that we get inspected to within an inch of our life. And so why should we be liable? And that we're good actors as well. And that they'll probably try to keep this for dams that are privately owned. Because the way they wrote it, even if it's an orphaned dam, the law requires them to go back to wherever the last ownership was, even if it was before a tax sale, that people that, and their heirs and assigns today are responsible. And I think what they're really trying to do with this bill is get at those orphan dams and make them come down, is what they're really trying to do. So I don't think that would necessarily be good either, but if that was the outcome and hydro dams got exempted, as we're good actors, I guess we'd live with it, right? That's not our cross to bear. Wouldn't be good for Vermont, but just want to make sure you're aware of that bill, because the stakes are pretty high.
Scott, would there be any point in launching any kind of a public relations campaign to inform the public of what these
Yeah.
utilities are up against?
Yeah, I've been talking with Alex about that, and I think we wanted to gauge what the tenor of the committee is after the testimony they got this week. If they're still hot on this, and it has legs, meaning it would get out of House Senate Natural. Then if it actually was to get out of Senate Natural before it went to the Senate floor, and certainly before it went to the House, we'd have to work with the other utilities to gear up a campaign. You know, GMP has a whole staff of people that used to be news anchors working for them, so we could partner with them, and they sure know how to do campaigns.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Another big one is this whole issue of flexible load management, and this is, you know, in the world that we're headed towards with everything electrified, if we're not gonna overbuild the grid, as we've talked about here, you've got to be able to figure out when and how people are using electricity in ways that don't impact their life, but just manage when and how things are happening. The state and Efficiency Vermont are definitely in cahoots to have Efficiency Vermont do that work. I'm not necessarily against Efficiency Vermont. Heck, I used to run the company that runs Efficiency Vermont. But this is different than energy efficiency. Flexible load management will almost entirely, the success of that sort of programming will almost entirely determine our electric rates. And I say that because a huge part of our electric rates, which most people don't understand, is actually driven by how much our peak electric usage for 1 second of the year. And then for 1 second of the month. So there's basically 13 data points that drive all the transmission costs that we pay. And if we lose control of that, and Efficiency Vermont's always going to put most of their effort where they can meet their goals the quickest, which is always Chittenden County, right? So we're gonna be priority 23, if they get to do this, and yet that's going to impact what our customers pay to a large extent. So I'm certainly firing on all cylinders in opposition to this idea. VEPSIS certainly is. I'm trying to figure out where the bigger utilities are. But you had a question.
Yeah, so could we mitigate that by having large battery storage?
It could, and we're talking about one big battery now, but interestingly, it's not clear if we'd be allowed to manage that battery or efficiency of markets manager on our behalf. So again, so are they gonna manage it to make sure that power gets out of the low wind, or are they gonna manage it to minimize our T&D costs?
Another question, and it goes back to our discussion about commercial versus residential. Years ago, before I switched over to heat pumps, I would every once in a while in the summertime get a notice that I was about to flip over into the commercial rate. So is the commercial rate going to put bar?
Residential.
Yes, yeah, is that level gonna be changed? Because if you're saying now everybody has to do everything on electric,
Yeah,
then
we're gonna have to look at all of that anyway, whoever's managing flexible load. We're actually talking about this at the VEPS meeting today. You know, there's some that would like to have those demand charges go away, as it does when we're telling you to go to.
yeah, you're telling me I have to use
And
everything.
then we're
Yeah.
disincentivizing you, and yet at the same time, it's not a time to take arrows out of the quiver, right? If most of your cost is gonna get driven by transmission costs, and why would we take the ability to use a demand charge out of the tool chest, if you will, right? So there may come a day when we do that, we may raise it to keep up with the times.
Yeah.
We may raise it only if you allow us under certain conditions to manage your load for you in the future, really big brother stuff we're talking about now, right? But that's where this is all going, right? So I think it's an untold story, but the key for me is, you know, we've gotta have control of how that's being done in our service territory, either us or, you know, VEPSA or somebody that we trust, that we know is aligned with our self-interest. So we're coming down pretty hard on that point, and I wanted to make sure you knew that. Then the only other big one I wanted to bring up for you is just, in the legislative committee piece, I raised the renewable energy standard bill, which is up for renewal this year. There's been a whole summer process, and, you know, everyone had kind of signed on to a prospective, position. So that did get out of, the committee of jurisdiction in the House last night. So now it has to go through House Ways and Means and House Appropriations before it gets to the floor. Town meeting is usually when crossover is, which basically means if you don't pass it out of one chamber by town meeting, you can't cross it over after that and have a vote before the end of the session. So it dies on the wall, if you will, if you don't make crossover. So, but the anticipation is that it will make crossover. There are some financial issues in it for Ways and Means and Perks, but not big ones. And the Speaker of the House has made clear to all of her committee chairs that this bill is passing by hook or by crook. So this will get out of the House, then it'll go to Senate now, after a town meeting, and who knows what will happen there. The reason it's gotten through the House so seamlessly is because all the environmental groups and all the utilities basically signed on to a deal and agreed that nothing could be changed. The House mostly kept to that bargain. There's some very minor tweaks that didn't make anybody mad. So the coalition stayed. And the belief is that Senate Natural won't be able to contain themselves. They all think that, you know, that they'll blow up what the coalition brought them. And if that happens, it'll be a food fight, and probably, which wouldn't be a bad thing for us, would mean that nothing will pass. Particularly since the governor's already been clear, he's vetoing anything on this that comes to his desk. So if he vetoes it, but the coalition is behind it, then there's probably votes enough to override it. But if the Senate blows it up and the coalition fractures, particularly if you think like Green Mountain Power can bring enough votes to the dance to kill any attempt to override a veto just by themselves, right? So, so long as the utilities stay together, we have a little bit of control on this thing. This is where generally they're gonna do the renewable standard to 100% by 2030. The unions got till 2035 as part of the bargain, so we get 5 more years than Green Mountain Power and the co-ops. And there's a few other things like that in there. So it's an okay compromise. It definitely is gonna drive some costs on the system. The legislature was clear that saying you're not gonna do anything wasn't acceptable to them, so this is kind of a, you know, hold your nose and make the best deal you can. And I think Pepsi did a really good job, at least buying us at 5 extra years, as the union. So that's the update. I think it'll blow up in the Senate and then we'll see what happens. I don't know, so just wanted to give you that heads up. But that's the other big one we've been watching this year. Boy, they're good at mischief down there. It does position us well, though, with the IRP we submitted to the department, because, you know, it has given us a little bit of a voice in the discussion. Legislators, I was able to spend most of the day, they were actually interested in what we were doing, because they, you know, obviously our friend had made clear to them, we submitted that, and so, we were actually interested in hearing what we were up to and what our thoughts were on this. So we have gotten a little traction for having submitted the IRP we did.
Is this something we need to look at putting? Okay, you got on the Article 7, the future of energy impact, is that something that'd be, this would fall under me? This kind of stuff is,
You asked for something similar to what we did with select board, that we did in all this stuff. Yeah, that was the idea. Exactly.
Any other good info?
I will say I did go to that cyber meeting, as I alluded earlier. We had both the State Department of Public Service and Department of Public Safety, excuse me, their cyber team, and then staff from Homeland Security, including the New England rep. And really we're talking through how attacks are happening on the electric grid and how the state and the Homeland Security through the region are tracking it, how we can get access to more of that. There's certain stuff we can get, probably too late. It's possible that there is a way for us as a utility. I'd have to get a security clearance and then I can join a weekly call to hear more of this directly, which then I can't share with anybody, other than to say, David, go disconnect us from the grid right now. So I may do that, I'm looking into that, but there's actually a pretty good system and resource for this now, much stronger than I anticipated it might be. So there's good information, they are paying attention all the time. And I get updates at least 3 times a week already, but that's usually from a few weeks ago by the time it's not classified. So by the time we're getting it, if it was something serious, it's probably too late. So I'm probably gonna agree to go through the security clearance. I've had one before in my life, but so I think I'm in their system. I think when I passed the last time, so I was probably less trustworthy the first time I got the security clearance than I am now.
Just to surprise anybody else?
So, you know, I had a higher one than I need for this, so, anywho, so just an update on that, you know, the good news on cyber is that Homeland Security is really paying close attention to the threats that are out there.
Well, when we talk about, you know, the low hanging fruit affecting something like us, getting into our system so they can affect something bigger, like Green Mountain. Does Green Mountain have something that, I mean, like they can put out to help us to keep that from happening to them? Because that's basically what they're gonna try to do, is go to the largest user.
It was interesting at this meeting, Green Mountain Power is considering getting the security clearance just like us, so they're not that far ahead of us, honestly, on this, which is unusual to say about Green Mountain Power. They're usually pretty far advanced. They had their CTO there, and he was like, yeah, we probably gotta figure this stuff out. So they didn't appear, at least from what they said at this meeting, they seem to be just in exactly the same boat as us. Velco seemed more in tune with what's going on. Again, the Department of Public Safety seemed more attuned to what's going on, but honestly, none of the utilities in Vermont seem very tied in. They actually invited Avangrid, who has utilities all over the Northeast, New England and New York, to come in and, because they've been participating in this Homeland Security process for a while, and kind of share with us, you know, how it works. They do ask you to share certain data, that, you know, so that they can look into your system, Homeland Security. So there's the big brother element, but they sign all kinds of agreements that they don't retain it for more than 24 hours and this, that, and the other thing. So And we'd have to look into all that, in Vermont to make sure that even sharing it with them is legal, since, you know, again, we don't own our data in Vermont, so, so we'll see, more to come on that, but I do think it's prudent to be keeping close track of all this stuff. Did make me feel better that, you know, you never know, you always hear what the government isn't doing. And I will tell you, my crap detector was not going off that they were just talking fluff. And what my meter was that they're actually on this, like seriously on this. I wouldn't say crap detector if we weren't on camera, you know what I meant.
Is there anything else?
Not for me.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to any other business to come for the meeting. Anybody have anything? Oh, no? In that case, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion made,
Second.
motion made, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, of closing the meeting at 6:52, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Good
Well,
night,
feel
everybody.
better.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
go home and test.
All right.
What do you guys think of these,
Phone